Most people think health is about what they do, but really it's about who they believe they are. Health isn't something you buy, it's something you build. And the blueprint is found in your identity. You were created in God's image, thus identity came before performance. Who you are is more important than what you do. And so when he says we were created in his image, our body is not a mistake. It's a mirror of purpose. It was created on purpose. I have a quote that says, "You're not overstressed, you're under recovered." Health requires that foresight and obedience because that's what's going to be required to handle the blessing that ultimately is coming for you. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Own It Show. I'm your host, Justin Roethlingshoefer, and if it's your first time here back at the Own It Show, I just want to welcome you. The big thing we do here is we help people live differently so that they can truly step into what God's called them to, from a redemption, a reclamation, and truly a revival in your health, starting from the inside out. And so today we're diving into what does it really mean to look at the identity behind health? Because I think when we think about health, we have to start with the question, what if your struggle with health has less to do with your effort and more to do with your identity? What if it has less to do with your effort and more to do with your identity? Because most people think health is about what they do, but really it's about who they believe they are. And I go back even in my life, and there were a lot of times where I would chase my health with products. It was different biohacking techniques. It was getting in hyperbaric oxygen chamber. It was needing to go and get the cold plunge. And I hear this all the time from clients and people who I speak to, is that they're like, "Justin, what's my first step? What do you think about intermittent fasting? What do you think about this supplement? What do you think about sauna and cold plunge? What do you think about red light? What do you think about the new 8 sleep mattress? What do you think about blackout shades for my room?" And everybody's looking for a biohack. They're spending thousands of dollars buying into these deep, elongated routines, but yet they still feel empty and they still don't feel well. This episode today is all about getting underneath all of that and really diving into the true identity of us. Because here's the big idea: health isn't something you buy, it's something you build. And the blueprint is found in your identity. And this past week, I had a revelation. I've been traveling a lot with Brandon Lake, and we came out for American Idol. It's been amazing. It's been really cool. And when we sat here this morning, I went and got into Genesis, and there was a revelation that came over me. In Genesis 1:26, it says, "Let us make man in our image." So what you have to remember is that you were created in God's image. The identity came before performance. So it's not like God, when he created us, said, "Hey, I'm going to make sure that this person can perform, and if they perform well, then I will create them." No, it actually came back with, you were created in God's image, thus identity came before performance. Who you are is more important than what you do. But how you live is ultimately a determination if you know who you are. And when we think about this, there were certain rhythms that had been put in place. There were certain things that ultimately occurred because we weren't made in chaos. In fact, it said that chaos was all around the world, and then once he created, the chaos stopped. And we created it with rhythm, with light and dark, with evening and morning, with work and rest, with breath and movement, with food and fuel. These are the rhythms that we're seeking in our life: stressing and recovering, serving and restoring. But so many of us forget that this rhythm has to exist in our life. I talk about it a lot in the Power of Ownership book, is what does a life by design look like? What are these rhythms that we're putting into our life? I don't think there's any such thing as balance. I think people who try to get balanced in their life will seek their life entirely trying to find balance and get frustrated because they can't find balance, because balance does not exist, especially in business owners, business leaders, and tip of the spear people who are constantly pushing, constantly moving. And so when he says we were created in his image, our body is not a mistake. It's a mirror of purpose. It was created on purpose. And I think this word purpose sometimes even gets misconstrued because, yes, you can be on purpose, but you're not doing things on purpose. Let me say that again. You can be going towards your purpose, but you can be not doing things on purpose. Meaning you can be going along and saying, this is my purpose, this is what I'm going for. That's the vision of what you see, but you can be doing things unintentionally, meaning how you're living. So you can be a pastor doing this massive work of building a church and building a community and building a congregation and getting your sermons all right. So you're living on purpose, but you're not creating and designing your life on purpose, meaning you're taking things as they come. You're staying up all night. You're not actually getting your rest. You're stressing constantly. And I don't care what your profession is or what your business is, but that's what we often find. We're on purpose in terms of mission, but we're by accident or off purpose in terms of intentionality. And so Adam didn't have to earn his rest or his presence. It was built into the design. And so health isn't something that you have to hustle for. It's something that you have to align with. And if we fail to understand that, we'll continue to start chasing and moving in such a powerful place that has a power within us to destroy us and disintegrate us. And these rhythms of resting and working and nourishment and presence and movement, health was natural. It came naturally. Because it was how it was designed. But the world has perverted that, and it's created these unintentional places. And so the alignment of body, soul, and creation, body, spirit, and mind, there was this beautiful interweaving. But again, the world has created a disintegration. They're trying to segment it. And when it's disintegrated, it caused the disintegration of our health. So before you live differently, you have to believe differently about who you are. And as we start to identify who it is that we are, that's sometimes where the battle comes. It's sometimes where the struggle comes. Because I don't think it's by accident that the first sin that was ever created, the first sin that separated us from God, was something that we ate, was something that we did against our body, was something that we internally ingested. Because in chapter 3, the serpent said, if you eat this fruit, you will be like God. If you eat this fruit, you will be like God. Basically saying that I don't know who I am, thus I'm continually trying to figure out who that identity person is. And if I can be like God, the lie is that you need to do something to become what you already are. Because Adam and Eve already were like God. They were created in his image. We just talked about this. But they doubted that identity. They thought it was something different. They thought it was something greater. I see all these people all the time. They look at somebody else's lawn and they think it's all pasture's always greener on the other side. They think, oh, this person does sauna and cold plunge. I must need to do that. Oh, this person does intermittent fasting or eats keto or Mediterranean or paleo or has this meal prep service or has this type of workout program or has this type of night routine or this type of morning routine. That's what I need to do. No, it wasn't created for you. And the reason it worked for that person was because they knew exactly who they were, and thus they designed their life according to that. And then they ultimately were in alignment, so they found their health. But you keep chasing health because you keep chasing something that was never actually designed for you. And so when you doubt that identity, you actually disintegrate the health that's been actually blessed to you already. Health is your destiny. Health is on your life. Health is made for you. But we disqualify ourselves not because that's something that we have to go through, but something that comes back to because we don't believe that that's what is that because we don't believe that that is actually for us. Because that moment that we believe that it's not for us, that moment that we doubt whether we're actually good enough or whether we can actually have this, it introduces shame. It introduces striving, hiding, the self-preservation, the self-protection, the disconnection between that rhythm and design. And I know you have this feeling. I know you've felt this because I felt it in my own life. I go back to this kid who was 13, 14 years old. And the lie was that the only way that I could validate myself was by working so hard, by being the hardest worker in the room. And not just the hardest worker in the room, but when the work was done, the work still wasn't done. And so I'd run up and down stairs in the middle of the night. I would sleep without sheets on because it was something that I had to battle through. I would do push-ups and sit-ups before I was even allowing myself to eat. And I was eliminating and disconnecting the rhythm of rest and recovery. Not because somebody told me to, quite frankly, everybody told me to stop and not to, but because I didn't know what I was doing against God's creation. I didn't realize who I was. And because I didn't know what my identity was, the punishment or the striving that I constantly went through created me to see health as punishment. And it was a lot of trauma over a lot of years, over a lot of health issues, from the liver and kidney failure to the precancerous polyps in my colon and the ulcer in my stomach, all of these things that started to come about, the bloating, the headaches, the nausea, the breakdown of my body. That is a result of the actions in which I take. And so my question for you is, where are you seeing the results in your life of the actions that you're taking that actually were never meant for you? They actually weren't created this way. You've dysregulated the rhythm. You've gone against the design. You're no longer living on purpose. You're living unintentionally. And when we think this concept doesn't apply to us, we have to come back to this concept of who made us all. Because we try to learn health, we try to earn it, we try to buy it, we try to prove it, because we've forgotten we were created for it. It's something that's been handed over to us. It's a right that we already have. Because when we've forgotten who we were created for and what we were created for, health becomes a punishment instead of stewardship. Food becomes fuel for control, not communion, not a place for community, not a place to meet, not a place to rest and relax. It becomes a place of stress. It becomes a place of friction. It becomes a place of, like, oh my gosh, overwhelm. Movement becomes punishment, not worship. And there was a conversation that I had with one of the three contestants who were the final three for American Idol. And I won't say he or she because I don't want to give their story away. But what they were saying was that every time they went to go work out, every time this person went to go work out, it felt like punishment. It felt like dragging themselves to the gym. It was not something of enjoyment. It was not something of fulfillment. It was not seen as worship. Romans 12, 1 and 2. It was not seen as this is your true and proper worship. It was seen as punishment. My gosh, you were created for a reason. You were created for a purpose. You were created in perfection. And movement is truly worship. Recovery becomes indulgent. I don't know how many times I've seen people who all of a sudden are always wanting to recover. I have a quote that says, "You're not overstressed, you're under recovered." Quite frankly, a lot of us are just constantly under recovered and thus haven't had to recover from anything because we're not stressed enough. But when recovery becomes indulgent, it's not restorative. And so we see recovery as that extra drink. We see recovery as staying up a little bit later watching some Netflix. We see recovery as going and doing a little bit more work that's just chill and relaxing. But it's not restoring. And that's where the gap continues to widen. That's where the gap continues to create change within us that isn't helping us, getting us where do we need to go. Most people aren't unhealthy because they're lazy. They're unhealthy because they're disconnected from who they are. And the longer that disconnection happens, the greater we see the enemy come in and start to create more of these lies. Oh, you weren't made for this. Oh, this isn't for you. Oh, this isn't where you're actually supposed to go. But there's a lot of stories of redemption through revelation. But the revelation of these starts with the Genesis stories of identity. You think about Noah. Noah was called to build something in alignment, even when it didn't make sense. For us, health requires foresight and obedience, not public validation. So, no, you don't have to put your cold plunging on social media every single day for it to actually be something of worship, something of value, something of purpose, something that's getting you closer to where you need to be. When we think about this call, I talk to Brandon about this all the time. The journey and trajectory of what the call is on his life, or some other athlete, or some other business owner. How you see your business today, it's the smallest it will ever be. And in order for it to grow, it's going to require you to gain more capacity. And so health requires that foresight and obedience, because that's what's going to be required to handle the blessing that ultimately is coming for you. And it won't make sense today. It won't make sense why you're saying no to certain things. It won't make sense why you have a hard line as to when you go to bed. It won't make sense as to why you have a certain morning routine when you wake up. It won't make sense why you start to eat a certain way to some people that you hang out with. But that's okay. That is okay, because they don't know where you're going. They don't know the obedience in which you're walking in. They don't know the call in which is on your life for this to become something new. You think about Joseph. Joseph held on to identity through betrayal and false accusations. You can stay in rhythm even when your circumstances are not ideal. You're traveling a lot. It's not ideal. Great. Let's build a system that's going to allow that to be something that flourishes. You're renovating your home, and ultimately there's certain things that are going to be like, hey, you know what? Yeah, I can't do this. No, let's build a way to get in a new rhythm that's going to change when our circumstances change. It's not always going to be sunshine and rainbows. You're going to find yourself at the bottom of some pits. You're going to find yourself in the bottom of some difficult situations. You're going to find yourself in a place where it's not always convenient. But this is where you can't start feeling betrayed or that you have to blame people, but rather, no, this is where I get the opportunity to create a new rhythm. I get to create a new rhythm, because there is no such thing as perfection. There's only the pursuit of better. And then the last one is Abraham walked by faith right into the unknown. Walked by faith right into the unknown. And for you, wherever you are today and you're listening to this message, your health journey may not be clear. You may not know what it looks like. You may not have a true deep discernment as to what this looks like for you, or what even the look of health looks like. But obedience reveals breakthrough. And that obedience for each one of you might be different. For someone right now, it might be, hey, I'm going to go and book a call with Own It. I'm going to go to ownitcoaching.com and book a call, because I know that I have a calling on my life, and I know that I have something bigger. I know that there's something there, but I just can't see it yet. But it requires me to take a step of faith and do something differently, create a new rhythm in my life so that I can have capacity to execute on that calling. It might be to go back and listen to the last 7 episodes. It might be to reach out to me on social media and send a message and start a conversation. But whatever it is, the obedience will reveal the breakthrough. Because right now, God's talking to every one of you. He's talking to you and he's saying, hey, you know what? This habit, this behavior, this thing that you're doing in your life, it's actually stealing from you. It's actually creating gaps that I need you to start changing so that I can pour more blessing upon you. I can ignite the fire. I can take the burn that's inside of you and ignite it into an inferno so that it can go and serve other people. But until you make a change, I can't do that, because it's going to crush you. And I'm not going to crush you, because you were made in my image, and you're beautiful, and you're wonderful. You're uniquely built. But the Genesis narrative is about trusting the design, trusting the designer, trusting the creation, trusting the creator. Because even when the world says do more, hustle more, grind more, it's like, no, No, I'm not going to abide by that. I'm going to live in a paradoxical world. I'm going to be transformed by the renewing of my heart, the renewing of my mind, the not conforming to those patterns, those values, those behaviors, but knowing that how I'm acting, how I'm behaving, the behaviors in which I'm setting up, the habits, the routines, the rhythms, that's true and proper worship. That's what this is all about. Because health can't be bought. You can't buy your health. You have to build it. You have to build it brick by brick. All of a sudden, I said I wanted to build a home, and I grabbed some bricks, I grabbed some cement, and I just threw a bunch of cement on the ground and then placed a bunch of bricks on top of it. The moment that a strong wind came in place, it would blow that thing right over. And that's how so many of us are with our health, is that we're just grabbing the supplements, we're grabbing the saunas, we're grabbing the red lights, we're grabbing the cold plunges, we're grabbing the tools, but they're not being precisely placed for us. They're not being done in a design. They're not following a design. They're not following a protocol. Because without alignment, it's not a design, it's just noise. And living different is about optimization. Optimization is about the pursuit of better. It's about taking ownership for the identity in which you have, in which you were created to go and steward your body differently. Because ownership is equal to alignment plus awareness and action. Alignment in who you are, alignment in what you were called for, awareness in what isn't working in your life, what rhythms are out of rhythm, and then taking action to put them back into place. Because if you want real transformation, you have to start with your identity. You have to start with knowing you were created with a mission, you were created with a purpose. And thus, in order to see that purpose through, you have to live a life by design on purpose. You were created with rhythm. You were created in the image of God. You are already who you are trying to become. You just need to own it. You are already who you're trying to become. You just need to own it. And so, where you are today, I want you to ask yourself, where in my health am I striving to earn something that I was already created for? Where in my health am I striving to earn something that I've already been created for? And I want you to sit on that this week. What comes up to you? What comes forward for you? What rhythm is out of rhythm? What are you trying to do that's missing? I really want to invite you to begin building your health by returning to who you were designed to be. You can go to ownitcoaching.com. You can find us there. You can message me on Instagram. But at the end of the day, you were created with rhythm. You were made in the image of God, and you are already who you're trying to become. You just need to own it. We know that success is different, so own your different. And we'll see you guys next week.